Yeah, my name is Jeffrey Thomson, and I'm going to read just a three paragraphs from the intro of this short memoir called Underwater Sculpture Garden, Isla Mujeres, Mexico. The sea is the color of glass, clear and green and azure. Sunlight heats the sky and spangles the waves. I am just a few miles off the sleepy end of the Yucatan Peninsula, Isla Mujeres, Quintana Roo. My hotel in Playa Norte is perhaps 3 feet above sea level. That's being generous. The tide is already tearing away at the foundations here, and the hotels have responded by building seawalls and breakwaters. The water comes in and eats away at the footings. It pulls the earth out to sea. It is unrelenting. The buildings persist, though, in an attempt to, quite literally, hold back the tide. But today the sea is calm and the beach soft and glorious, with palapas and hammocks and beach chairs and the rustic elegance of Mexico, all old wood and turquoise as I come down to the shore. The tour boat arrives, bright white with a slice of blue across the bow. I wade out to meet it, the water shallow to my knees for 100 feet offshore, and climb aboard. We motor off the coast with snorkel gear and beer and the constant hum of the speakers banging the music that defines Cancun. Like the world's a constant party, and there's no tomorrow, no price anyone will ever have to pay. The sky blazes in its winter heat and the air smells of salt and sunscreen. Gulls trail the boat and fill the air with laughter. When the boat captain stops and says with a grin, "Estamos aquí," I pull on my flippers and fall back over the rail with one hand hard against my mask. There's a blinding wash of bubbles, and then suddenly I am floating inside the jade cool clarity. The water is welcoming after the day's heat. I dive down. Beneath the water, my body's weight is weightless. I am nothing. I am free. Below me, beneath the water, there are stone bodies standing. There are more than 500 bodies below the water here, across more than 400 square meters. They are so much heavier than me. It's a really good question. I write memoirs for the same reason I write most things. I write them because I'm interested or I'm trying to figure out something. I'm trying to understand my own thinking. I'm trying to understand either a phrase or a generative moment or an image in my head. My training is mostly as a poet, so that's sort of where I start, often with image or just moments. And then it depends a little bit on the piece, on the material of or the subject matter as to what form it takes. Sometimes things work better in poetry, sometimes things work better in memoir, sometimes things are a little bit more lyrical and condensed and work that way as a poem, and other times they need more. They need more pressure, they need more attention, they need more attention from me, attention from my language, attention from my thinking, and those things tend to become memoirs. That's the easiest way, but they all often start in the same place. Sure. Yeah. I mean, it's about, I was on Isla Mujeres for vacation with my wife, and we've been to Tulum a number of times, and we've been to this area. It's an area we love, but it's also a sort of complicated area. And I went out on a tour boat to see this pretty remarkable underwater sculpture garden, and I didn't know how strong an effect it was going to have on me. And I went and saw these sculptures, and I realized at that moment that he was talking about what I was seeing. Jason Kakaris, was talking about what I was seeing on the upper world, right, which is the pressure that global warming is having on these places, right? This very flat landscape with the beautiful water, and so that tension again, that tension that's hopefully in that paragraph too, with the idea of, Cancun as a kind of perpetual party, and that, we don't have to pay a price for what we're doing to the earth, and, the way we're raising the temperature and raising the sea level. So all those things are in tension, hopefully there. And I didn't totally know that was what I was going to talk about when I started writing it. I was just really attracted to these sculptures and to the place, and I wanted to figure that out. But in the process of writing it, that's what I came to learn. Sure. I started with that phrase that I read in that third paragraph. Beneath the water, my body's weight is weightless. And so the first thing I wrote was a kind of a lyric, couple paragraphs, just about the experience of, being in that water, being in that sort of warm water where you sort of lose the sense of your body a little bit, and seeing the sculptures and just playing around with weight and weightlessness and the sense of that sense of liberation. But it wasn't. I don't think the first draft wasn't clear and sort of wasn't at all what the full piece would be. And I had to go back and sort of think about it and what was I doing. And then I had to give a little more context. I have to give the reader some grounding. I have to give the reader, here I am in this place in Mexico. Here's what I'm doing. Right, here's kind of what it looks like. And then I started to see some sort of echoes, the echoes that come in with the Chinese soldiers buried by Qin Shi Huang, I think is the pronunciation of that emperor's name. The famous Chinese terracotta warriors. The part of the sculpture garden kind of looks like that. And then thinking about this sort of tension that I talked about a minute ago, about sort of this sort of permanent party of Cancun and the fact that the water is rising there around this very shallow islands, and this was all sort of multiple layering. Sort of, I think of writing memoir as kind of like going to a massage therapist, right? And you have the massage therapist hold her thumb on a trigger point, and it hurts and it's hard, if you keep the pressure on that point, on this one point, because not a whole lot happens in this memoir, not a whole lot happens in a lot of the things that I write is memoirs, but if you hold the pressure down, if you just keep, by pressure there I mean sort of just the attention of your writer's brain, and keep thinking about it and keep pushing at it, it sort of releases, and then all the pieces sort of seem to find their space. So it literally started with one line and grew from there. So I had a first draft before I left Mexico. It was very fast. It was literally that night that I wrote something on my phone. And so, we're talking, 6 to 8 months probably. And I'm not working on it every day, all day, right? Part of my process is, to write something, let it sit for a little bit, let it get cold. Then I come back and look at it. What is it doing? How is it working? Where is it lacking? And then working on it again, then letting it sit for a little bit. So it's definitely a back and forth process. But it could have easily been 6 to 8 months. Yeah, for me, it's always about making sure the reader sees what you see as the writer, because this is really a trap that memoir writers can fall into easily, because this is your life and you know it, and you're the expert. But the reader comes to you, the page, to this computer screen with a blank mind, right? And so you have to provide the details. You have to give her the characters. What do your mom and dad look like? How do they act, right? Where are you in the world? What does it look like? What does it smell like? right? What time of year is it? My friend Susan Conley calls it map and clock, right? What time is it? Where are we? All these things that are so easy to sort of skip over with memoir, because again, if you're the writer, you're the expert. This is your life, and it seems obvious to you. And learning that it's not obvious to the reader is it's part of the revision process, but it's also just part of that attention that I was talking to, that kind of pressure. Yeah, there's a lot. I mean, there are a number. The two that I can think of two right offhand. Jessamine Ward's "Men We Reaped," which is about I think it's 5 men in her family who died as she was growing up. She's a spectacular writer, and that piece is very complicated and very haunting. And then it's more sort of narrative, and so a different one that I also like is The Argonauts, Maggie Nelson, who's another writer that I dearly love, which is very lyric, fragmented, about desire, about gender, about sexuality, about being a woman, what being a woman is like in space and time, and but is really also incredibly smart. So those are two that I would tell people to go look at. Sure. I'd give a shout out to my friend Simmons Button, who published this piece on his magazine Terrain. And if you don't know terrain.org, you should definitely take a look at it. Right? It is a beautifully curated space for writing about place, about landscape, about conflict, about people, and it's one of my favorites.